Any shamanic practitioner or shaman worth his salt will tell you, if you're attracted to this path, I am sorry. This is a path of pain, loneliness, and constant tribulation. This is not a path where you go to a place every Sunday and worship, or one you'll find many guides to lead you along the path. This is a very lonely and dangerous road. It's almost like the road with Shiva. You don't quite know where you're going, but you're going somewhere. But for a grave worker or a shamanic practitioner, it's not a road that you expect or even desire contentment in. You're just called to it. It's just in your bones. It's in your being. It's just so ingrained in your nature that you're drawn to a shamanic path. You aren't called to it. We don't have evangelists on any of these shamanic paths that I'm speaking about, or grave worker paths. We don't have evangelists tell you, hey, this is what you should do with your life. This is the way to go. These are the spiritual practices you should do. No, you have to forge your own path, find your own way. And there's no group title that'll make you feel better about yourself or draw you into something that you consider as, this is my group. If you're a shamanic practitioner or a grave worker, a shaman has their own tribe. A shamanic practitioner and oftentimes a grave worker, you're not being raised into the tradition. You're not being held as, the next step of a lineage of shamans. You find this path because you're drawn to it. It's in your blood somehow. And it doesn't matter what kind of ethnicity you are, race. These things don't matter. Grave workers and shamanic practitioners, different than shamans, are just drawn to these spiritual practices, drawn to reach out to spirits, reach out to gods, and to not quite follow any path that has been laid down either in scripture or books, or even a lot of times by other shamans. You just find yourself drawn. And it is a painful path because you're going to make a lot of errors. You're not always going to be able to reach out to spirits and to gods. You're going to fall back. You might even question yourself a lot of the time. But I feel like a lot of shamanic practitioners and grave workers, we know, we have this innate feeling that what we're trying to contact or what we do contact exists. The only question is, how effective are we doing it? And that's why trial and error and experimentation are so important on a shamanic path, because we don't get it right all the time. Unless you're raised into a shamanic tradition, unless you are taught by a shaman, you're going to make even more mistakes than you would in that case. And you just have to experiment and try to reach out to spirits and gods. And the stories that we tell ourselves about the spirits, about the gods, as a shamanic practitioner, you start to feel and see certain holes. It's almost like you're a storyteller and you're telling yourself a story. A storyteller does not concern himself with the truth. Stories are truer than the truth. These are not so much literal constructs as imaginative recreations, because you start to relate your own story about yourself and the gods and the spirits to the sensations and experiences you have with them. And you start to feel that it's like this same truth behind so many traditions, so many religions. And it's really interesting because you see a lot of the same practices going across shamanic practitioners or grave workers. And it's not so much what the religion is or what the spiritual path you're using is, So many shamanic practitioners use a number of paths, use a number of different religions and spiritual paths in order to compose their relationship to the spirits and gods. And the closer you get to the spirits and gods, the more foreign you might often find yourself being to regular people. It's almost like there's a whole nother language and a whole nother relationship to reality. Schizophrenics, for instance, are, and there's this one study that I've read that says, you're 3 times more likely to be schizophrenic if you have Native American blood, which I do. I have African blood and mainly Scandinavian blood, but have that. And there's 2 sides to this scientific theory. One side says that, schizophrenia, tribes and peoples have always ascribed a shaman title, a shaman identity to these people. And, it's only psychological, and these people are obviously very disturbed. The other side is, yes, in various cultures, schizophrenics have been assigned this shamanic title or function in a tribe, in a clan, in a society. But it's because they can breach the veil. They can pierce the darkness between places. That void, which is just between one place and another, is easier for us to traverse. And of course, I follow the latter, but from an outside observer, it may seem like the former. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that if you feel drawn to a shamanic path or to be a grave worker, as I've described in my other videos, then I'm sorry, because I didn't really know how hard the path was when I first read my first shamanic work many years ago by Raven Caldera that said, if you're drawn to this path, I'm sorry. It's a very lonely and painful path. And I didn't really get it at the time, but now, many years later, it's so true. We don't have groups. That's the loneliness part. And, you're only relating to the gods and spirits most of the time. That's also part of the loneliness part. But the pain is in the failure of your own spiritual techniques that you're developing yourself. It's almost like you're a constant scientist and trying all these different experiments, but with your own energy, with the energy outside of you, with the energy inside of you, and the techniques of exchange. And you fail a lot of the time, and you go through pain a lot of the time. And it's a path that will not does not promise you fulfillment, but one that can achieve greater connection. And that greater connection is difficult. It's hard. It's the number one, point behind the shamanic path. Greater connection to nature, to the gods, to the spirits, to everything that is. And when you feel that greater connection, there's no words that can describe it. There's no set path that you can lay down for people to follow your exact connections and find the same wholeness that you feel. You are alone. And you have to be incredibly strong to follow this path, no matter what kind of spirituality or religion that you incorporate within it. You have to be incredibly strong, because you do not have anything to support you, except if you make those connections with the spirits and gods. Then that support holds you up, but that's the only one you have. At any rate, I hope this has been interesting. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot them down in the comment section below on YouTube. I would love to hear your answers and questions and comments. So you can also hit that like button down there on YouTube. It will really help out the channel. It helps the algorithm notice me. And if you don't feel drawn to a path like this, that's fine. But the most important thing is to find yourself. Find who you truly are. At any rate, I hope all of you have a wonderful day.